those of us who are tracking the meta phenomenon,
Yeah.
right? The inconsistency between things that were once reconcilable,
Right.
Those of us who are tracking that are, I think, alarmed because it's a little bit like, I don't know, what's the right analogy? Maybe it's, why am I blanking on his name? The mathematician, schizophrenic mathematician, the beautiful mind. Anyway, it'll come back to me. But here you had a highly intelligent person who became aware that he was perceiving reality in a fiercely broken way.
Right.
And, to his credit, was able to sort of build a correction so that that thing didn't interfere with his ability to do Nash.
Nash, that's right.
To do what he was on Earth effectively to do, right? To sort out stuff like Nash equilibria and other deep stuff.
It interfered with plenty else in his life. But.
Right. But the point is, if you know that your brain plays those tricks on you, I actually think this is one of the important values of psychedelics, is that if you can knowingly engage some of the things that your brain will do under those circumstances, then you're a little better prepared when things go haywire for whatever reason.
Yeah, whether endogenously or exogenously.
Right.
Yeah.
But in any case, those of us who are tracking the meta-narrative are, I think, beginning to be aware that we are watching something that is not just an analogy to collective psychosis, that this is a very real process. And it really, like, imagine that social media has paranoid schizophrenia at the moment, and then say, well, how much does that explain about the discussions that I'm watching? Unfortunately, way more than would be healthy. And geez, what's tied up in this? Pandemic policy, nuclear codes, economic collapse, our view of race, and all of the progress that we've made on it over the last couple hundred years.
And paranoid schizophrenia, which, itself may be a bunch of things, with different ideologies, and, we're no psychologists, but I think it is actually, in some way, one of its many features is it's a failure of, it inherently involves a failure theory of mind, because there is additional narrative going on, at least sometimes, in the head of the person, and they have to imagine that as they are spouting nonsense to someone else, that someone else is also sharing their delusions. And so this is a breakdown of this, again, not unique to humans, but one of the fundamental superpowers of humans, which is attributing different mental states to others, theory of mind.
Right. And actually, maybe the solution here, which I think we're a long way from, but we need to bootstrap it, and quick. The solution borrows from interpersonal experience, right? Those rare interpersonal experiences that actually mirror this exact breakdown, where two people diverge in their ability to see even what narrative they share together.
Yeah.
And the point is that results in, literally being triggered, in this way that makes the other person the enemy and all of this. And so to the extent that the real point is, I don't know what you're seeing on your feed, but I'm just going to make the assumption. I know you to be reasonable. Therefore, I'm going to assume that the crazy things that I hear you saying are the logical result of what you actually think is going on, and that the divergence between what you think is going on and what I think is going on is in some sense exogenous.
Yeah.
And, I do wonder, I know there have been some experiments, but I do wonder why those of us who recognize the hazard here are not obsessed with reverse engineering as much of the algorithmic stuff as we can, including why are we not paired with somebody who the algorithm sees as our opposite, so that we can exchange information on what reality looks like through that lens, just as a corrective.
Yeah.
I do this informally.
Yeah.
I'm checking in with stuff I'm not supposed to be reading, because that tells me something of what other people are seeing, but there ought to be a systematic way to do it. And I don't at least see a wholesale effort at it, and it really needs to happen.
No, I remember actually our friend Jordan Hall, formerly Jordan Greenhall, saying to us, gosh, it must have been 5-6 years ago, that he specifically made a point of going deep, and not just surface level, not sort of just Fox versus MSNBC, but deep into the chans basically of both sides to see what was being believed and what was being trotted out as fact.
Well, fascinating you should mention Jordan, because guess what happened to Jordan this week?
Oh, he got booted from Facebook, didn't he?
Booted from Facebook. Amazing.
Oh, my goodness.
So my conjecture here is actually that there is some...
So some of you will be familiar with him from Blue Church, Red Church discussions.
Yep. Or Rebel Wisdom.
Yeah, he's done a number of Rebel Wisdom interviews. He's a fabulous thinker, and he's got some amazing essays on Medium as well.
He does, but I think the thing is, the thing that tossed me off Facebook and has now tossed him, and a bunch of other people were tossed too, and I don't know who they were. I'm not paying real close attention to Facebook, but the thing that I think is the thread that joins us is you've got people who are not dismissible as conservatives, right? If you're a GOP conservative, then I don't think Facebook is all that worried about you, because at some level you can be dismissed by those who need to ignore the things that you're saying.
You're already wearing the star.
Right. Yeah, there you go. The real problematic cases are the ones who aren't buying this woke stuff that is taking over these institutions, but can't be dismissed as conservatives for whatever reason, or either too heterodox or too liberal or something like that, because that is the thing that breaks the damn narrative. Yeah. And so...
Yeah, we need... They need ideologues in order to effectively categorize and market to and control.
Yeah. However, something is bizarre. I went back when I was let back into Facebook and began to look at who my friends on Facebook are. It's pretty interesting. There's some pretty powerful people in that friend group, and I'm sure Jordan will be able to say the same thing. So I have the sense that there's a battle going on in Facebook.
And powerful in tech space. Powerful, yeah.
Very much so. Yeah. And so anyway, this has got to be super awkward inside Facebook. We may never know what's going on there, but...
Well, when you mentioned this to me off air a couple of days ago, and I said to you, I think maybe there's a power struggle going on, but I think at least some of these events, and maybe a majority of them, maybe a vast majority of them, are attributable to the fact that in many domains, the adults in charge have put interns, sometimes unpaid entirely, sometimes underpaid, fresh out of college, super woke, heads brimming with postmodernist, critical race theory, fill in the blank studies here, nonsense, in charge of things like social media feeds and making decisions about censoring accounts, basically, because this is work that requires a desire to spend a lot of time in those spaces, and also is kind of rote. But it turns out that this kind of rote work actually has tremendous power. So the would-be adults both ceded power in parenting and helped create this mess among nearly an entire generation, and now many of the woke young are in charge of effectively policing what we all are allowed to see.
Yeah, but it's even one step worse than this, because you've got that thread through which total nonsense of a woke stripe has reached a level of commonality and acceptance that it makes it dangerous. But then you have this other thing, which I don't think is inherently closely related to it, right? Which is the corrupt left, the technocratic corrupt left, which is attempting to maintain its power. And my point would be is if you come at this from the question of, well, okay, what does a heterodox person conclude about all of the issues of the day, right? Two things they are likely to conclude are one, that the woke stuff is dangerous and not true, and two, that the Democratic Party is not defending the interests of common people and is actually a cryptically corrupt force that maintains the status quo and keeps power held tightly in a small group. And the point is, okay, so the platforms are now inhabited by people motivated by the former and owned by people motivated by the latter, and they've teamed up in this unholy alliance. And that is the really scary thing, because the kind of power to adjust the way we think, or whether we think, that is contained in the algorithmic technical layer is immense.